Ano e ke aloha nui a ka koa Paulo o wau ke iwa o Keli'i Kalapoa Masao Grothman. I'm Keli'i Grothman and I'm here with our first ever presentation with Maoli Hula Hawaii, our lecture series. And our first presentation we are going to do is focusing about the ancient Hawaiian capital with Lahaina and the history of Lahaina. As you all know, or maybe you don't know, that Hawaii, that when we think of Hawaii, first you might think, well, Hawaii is part of the US. Well, Hawaii was its own form of government before, and even further back, it was a bunch of chiefs and chiefdoms running around. So when we talk about Lahaina as the ancient capital, we're talking about the capital of the Hawaiian Kingdom, when the Hawaiian Kingdom, the monarchy, was formed. Of course, chiefs of different islands around Hawaii had their own capital. In Oahu, they had a capital of the chiefs of Oahu. Hawaii Island had their own chiefs. And their capital, we are focusing on Maui and the history of Lahaina being an ancient capital, one of the ancient capitals of Hawaii. Okay, so a little bit backstory. I was born in Maui. My family is from Lahaina. My mother went to Lahaina Luna High School. My grandfather, my cousins, my aunties and my uncles are part of Lahaina, which is very special to me, which is kind of why I wanted to do Lahaina for my first presentation today. And we're gonna get started. The first part of Lahaina. So just a little overview of what we're gonna do is my little table of contents of what we're going to do, just to give you a heads up. And the first we're going to do is the etymology and Olelo Naʻauao, kind of focusing about Lahaina. What does Lahaina mean? Is there any old names for Lahaina? Olelo Naʻauao. So Olelo means like words, language. Naʻauao means skillful. So these are poetic sayings, wise sayings, handed down from our ancestors. Kind of quick little, they make innuendos or little fun poetic ways of expressing things. And so we're gonna focus a little bit about that and some of the famous Olelo Naʻauao of Lahaina. And we're gonna continue on in our presentation about ancient Lahaina. So when we're talking about ancient, we're talking about the time pre-Kamehameha. So Kamehameha unified the kingdom, the Hawaiian Islands, around 1810. So we're gonna focus more prior to that time period, prior to the unification of the Hawaiian Islands, which is ancient Lahaina. And then the capital era, so this is when Kamehameha had unified the islands together. A little bit of that history in those maybe first decades of the unification. Continuing on to the plantation era, and we're looking at maybe around the 1850s all the way up, and this is going to expand all the way to like the 1990s. And within kind of the ending of that plantation era is the tourist boom, so the kind of switch of economy from agriculture to tourism. And then kind of the big heavy topic at the end of recent events that have happened in Lahaina, the fire that took place on August 8th, and some of my thoughts and hopes for the future. So that's a little overview of what we're going to talk about today in our presentation, and we are going to begin with the etymology, the study of the words, of the breakdown of the words, and the Olelo Naʻauao, the poetic sayings. So Lahaina, people have talked about, and it's kind of been going back and forth within the community. What does Lahaina actually mean? Because Lahaina is actually also a name. One is the name of a sweet potato, but what we kind of come to a consensus of what it may mean is La means sun or day, Haina, which means cruel. So Lahaina together would mean the cruel sun. And growing up, I would say Lahaina's sun is cruel. It's evil. When I was a little kid, I had like this rash on my left side, And I only ever got it when I went to Lahaina because it is hot and the wind doesn't blow. That wind is blocked. So our winds come from the northeast. All winds in Hawaii basically come from the northeast, the trade winds. Lahaina has the mountains blocking that. So for most of the year, there's no wind. And it gets to like 40 degrees easily in Lahaina in the summertime. It's dry. So it has a sense of the cruel sun, yeah, that's beating down on you. And as much as I love Lahaina, I hated the heat in Lahaina. But it made the mangoes taste sweet with all that sunshine. Okay, so that's Lahaina. What's interesting is because, so Lahaina, as you can see, Haina has that kahako mark over it, which makes it an emphasis. But actually, the kupunas that I grew up with, including my grandmother and her friends and everyone, they never said Lahaina or Lahaina, like the la with the kahako on it. They just said Lahaina. In fact, more often than not, they would say Lahaina. And that's why in Hawaiian language, a lot of the native speakers, whenever they had this, the AI, the letters A and I, they kind of, in colloquial, regular talk, would change it to EI. And that's not just for this word, it was for like everywhere. Like you have la nai, the veranda porch, and the aunties I know would say la nei, because the AI switched to the EI. So people now are saying, oh, it's la haina. And I have to kind of tell them, no, it's lahaina. And in fact, if you want to sound like our kupuna, you should say lahaina. That's actually how they would say it. So that is kind of the terminology. Lahaina is what we used for the town name. It's actually the name of the district. We think of Lahaina as the town, but it's actually a district within Maui. So it includes a bigger area. And then, so the ancient name for Lahaina is Lele. Now Lele can mean flight, like flying, or flight like moving quickly. It can also mean to jump. It can mean to disembark, like when you get off a horse or a car or a plane. Yeah, you kind of finish with your journey, you lele, you kind of get off. So that's what lele means. There's kind of talks about where does this lele come from? Yeah, where does this word come from? So lele, one thing that I've heard was that lele was in reference to the many chiefs of ancient Maui that would gather in this area in Lahaina, lele. And they would only stay there because it was like a council of chiefs. There's a very secret area that we're going to talk about in Lahaina. And so they would stay there temporarily. So they're kind of, and then they leave. Right after their council of chiefs, you leave. And that's like the flight. They're moving quickly here and there, here and there. And so Lele was the ancient name up until maybe, and we don't know exactly when, but maybe a few hundred years ago. 300 or 400 years ago, and this is when this one chief kind of unified the island, and we're going to talk about that person as well soon. And when it became unified, there wasn't like this big need to, war council of chiefs, because there was kind of peaceful amongst the Maui chiefs. And then it slowly became Lahaina. Yeah. But if you tell people in Lahaina, lele, yeah, we call it lele sometimes too. Okay, so that's kind of the etymology of Lahaina, the breaking down of it, as well as its ancient name, lele. And the olelo no'eau. So one olelo no'eau of Lahaina is Lahaina I ka malu ulu.